Ball touched the ground a lot today.
Yeah.
A lot.
I think
not great, Bob.
No.
How are you? Not great, Bob.
And then he starts like dancing, and I was like, oh yeah. And then he kept dancing, and then he was twerking, and I was like, it's a damn good twerk.
And I would say it's like
that's the open.
Yeah.
No.
But it really was
like
funny.
As a woman, I was impressed
There
that
it
he has
is.
that
There
much
you go.
body
There's the
control.
open.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus Podcast, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with the graphic going of subscribe. We appreciate it. All right, we are recapping day one of mandatory minicamp in Buffalo. Now, everyone was there, including Rasul Douglas. The only person that was not was Christian Benford, and that was an excused absence.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. Everyone was there. Attendance, great stuff. All right, let's talk some of our takeaways from this afternoon. Michael, I think it's important to start with the offense.
Because they didn't start.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough. And we promised not to overreact. One, it's June. Two, they did make a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Dan and I talked about this during the practice. I used to say to my buddy who worked for the Patriots, what's it like at your practices? And he'd say, the ball never touches the ground or rarely touches the ground. And then the Bills became that team.
They were.
Ball touched the ground a lot today.
Yeah.
A lot.
I think
not great, Bob.
No.
it is important to keep this in the context of that it is June, because we don't want overreaction. And also, this was a lot sloppier than I think we were thinking they would be.
I think it's also on top of what we saw at the final day of OTAs that we did a video and said, this kind of looked off. McDermott, Josh, the offense was false starts and penalties. And now all of a sudden we come here and it's like, all right, they're going to be ironed out. This is what we're going to see. It wasn't really the case.
I think it's important to remind people two things can be true, right? They can be sloppy and it can be June. So I do think, again, harping on the we don't want to overreact. And also, like I said, that there were some things that you saw. Allen with a couple picks throughout OTAs. He had one again today. And those drop passes, like you talked about, there's a lot that's new in this offense. Some of the players, some of the schemes. So I think it's going to take time. But I think it was concerning because we really haven't seen the offense kind of flash like we had expected it to, between OTAs and minicamp.
And there is a lot of change. And it's the wide receiver position. And I think there was I try to think of the way eloquently expressed by Joe Brady today.
Yeah. He said somebody's got to start
making a
play.
I think
because
in there.
Yeah, in the span of 4 plays, there was a James Cook drop. The next play, Josh missed Kincaid over the middle with a bad throw. They then ran the ball, and then Shaver slipped on a route, and Kyer picked him off. That was a 4-play sequence for the Bills offense. And again, a lot of balls were getting picked up off the ground today. And again, it's not an overreaction. We're just reacting to what we saw. It's not an overreaction. It's just a reaction.
And Jenna, it's a reaction in the moment. It's a reaction there. I'm not making any long-term thing on any of this. There's nobody hitting anybody. It's not real football. It's a good thing because Josh would have gotten crushed a couple of times. Allen was not particularly sharp. But again, there's a ton going on. It is still, they got another day of OTA.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll have the third. And then they'll be back. And then it's training camp and all those things. But it's a lot of moving pieces, and it's a lot to be ironed out.
I guess I was thinking that if this was a training camp practice, we'd be more, hey, man, the offense looked bad today. Like we would evaluate it differently. It's a mandatory minicamp in June. It's June. It's June.
Yes.
It's June.
Yes.
But
yes,
I would like them to look a little cleaner than what they've looked today. The defense had what felt like a ton of juice, fired up. The offensive side just looks flat right now?
I think there's so much teaching and there's so much learning that so many players are having to think before they play.
Tough to play fast when you're thinking.
Yeah.
And it is tough to play fast when you are thinking.
I think that's accurate. And look, when Dan mentions in the previous training camps, right? Well, if you had a training camp practice and it was sloppy, it could be a rough day for Dion on the left side.
Yeah.
Could be a rough day. Diggs wasn't sharp. Gabe dropped a ball. Like all those things happen. But we had seen those people excel so many times in Bills uniforms, right? So you're like,
correct.
Bad day.
Yeah. If this was Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs and the same offensive line and all these things, we'd sit there and go like, who cares? Like we know, because we know what to expect. This is a whole new thing.
it's the biggest thing is because we don't know what to expect because there is no track record. Now, there's a couple of things going on. Khalil Shakir left the field.
Left the field today. We don't really know what the injury was. All we will say is that he left practice.
Yeah. Now, he stood on the sidelines for a while. He was not in any sort of distress or anything, but
Yes, walked by us.
yeah,
Walked
a little
off.
bit of a limp.
Yeah, just walked off on his own. All I'll say is that we've said before is that when Dawson Knox has tweaked something, they usually stay there and watch the rest of practice. Khalil did not.
Yeah. So that's not great. But the other group of players are all out there trying to find their way.
Yeah.
There is the closest thing you have to a definite is Kincaid.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's
he
one
made
year in.
and he made two nice catches today.
Yeah.
One was over Taron Johnson, I thought, early on in 7-on-7. So
Did we see? I did not see Claypool. I only saw Mitch Trubisky throwing Claypool the ball.
I only
Yeah.
saw it too. And he made
Me too.
two nice catches again.
Yeah.
He
Claypool
did.
continues to make plays.
He is a physically impressive guy. You watch him run.
Massive.
I think Josh was asked about, he goes up, he grabs the ball, or whatever. I will have to say, Justin Shorter dropped one over the middle. It dropped. It wasn't an obvious drop. He went up to get it.
Yeah.
That was the moment when Brady made that comment. It wasn't specifically directed at Justin.
Correct.
And then we got a chance to talk to Justin Shorter today.
We did talk to Justin Shorter. Where else are you going to get this kind of coverage? We talked to him. We asked him.
Very engaging guy. It's the first time I've talked to him.
So exciting.
Very excited. He's an excited guy.
Excited guy. Tall.
Yes.
And we asked him, he's been dealing with injuries. It's a new turnover in the wide receiver room. People talk about him. We told him people are excited about him, but we haven't really seen him, which is kind of what we've talked about on this channel. But we asked him, what does he bring to the Bills? And this is what he had to say.
Man, I'm a deep threat, honestly. A big dude. I get down there, I can jump up, I'm fast, I'm versatile, I can play special teams too, so I feel like I'm really be able to help this team out this year. Yeah. You already know it, Randy know it.
He's a guy you root for because he's so into it, but he realizes too, like it's an opportunity for him.
Mm-hmm.
He said Josh is really good when he gets a chance to talk to him about
Yep.
what's going on. But like these other guys, he's got everything to prove.
Does this count as like 2 or 3 counts for like our next? Do we still have to keep it going, or
Yes.
do we bank all of these Justin Shorter comments?
What do you think?
I would say the actuality, the soundbite with him, and it's a full interview we did, the compliments, and I'm watching him. Look,
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the guy. He's young and enthusiastic, and he was a draft pick last year, and we barely got to see him on the field. What a plus it would be for this franchise if a young, tall, fast wide receiver could really play. It's just a lot to take in because he missed a lot
Yeah.
in this past year.
He's the one, again, besides Claypool, no other wide receiver has really wowed me. I liked what I've seen in Keon at times. He had a nice catch on like a little slant route that was like contested, like the defensive back was right on him, and he was able to have the handshake to kind of catch a ball in traffic. So I've liked that. I've really liked how secure he is. We've talked about it before. He's got late hands. So I like that. But besides Claypool, nobody else has really flashed. Like, while they did bring in more guys over Justin Shorter, there still is an opportunity if he starts to make plays and make moments.
Yeah.
Like Sean talked about it today. There are no roles really defined yet.
No.
That's the interesting part of this team, and that's something that'll be fun to watch develop. But you're right, there is a huge opportunity here for Justin Shorter. I mean, a draft pick last year. I know it was a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
But it does feel very wide open because I would agree with you, Dan. I feel like Claypool has made some really nice plays, and there's been other nice moments by. Oh, that's good.
Just drop
Notebook
that.
is just
put that
falling.
anywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, even Curtis Samuel had a nice catch, and then at another play, this was in OTAs, ended up being a pick. Thank you, Michael.
And Josh is also tweaking with his throwing mechanics.
Yeah, and this was something really interesting today because he kind of brought it up by himself. We were there asking him questions at his press conference, and he talked about the tinkering that's been going on in this offseason because with the injury he had last season, it kind of made him throw the ball lower and he was kind of wider on stuff. So he's trying to get the mechanics back, which I think, I mean, that's huge for him. The footwork, the mechanics. Like he said, he sometimes will stumble on YouTube of old videos of him from high school and at Wyoming. He's like, ooh, gross. Like it's gross to look at.
He even said sometimes he goes, "Who's that guy?" And then he goes, "Oh, that's me."
Yeah. I mean, the progression of where he is at, but it's those little details that are so important. So he talked about kind of being like a golf swing where you gotta rework things. It might feel a little unnatural at first. Yeah.
He loves the golf. The golf analogies.
I love it.
Yeah.
We are the king of analogies on the Bills YouTube podcast platform. This
crowning
is
ourselves.
Yeah. Baseball and golf analogies right here.
That's it. But Josh is right. And it is. And, it's funny. I asked him about changing. And then he sort of not corrected. He was like, I haven't changed. Like you said, he's tweaking it.
He used the word refining what he is doing.
It is interesting that he referenced the injuries because I do think that can happen where you start to adjust for the injuries and then you're doing things.
Because he said pain in the way your body reacts to try and hide the injury so you can, keep playing through it. And then all of a sudden you form bad habits.
Yeah. And that's why there are times when maybe he wasn't as accurate in those moments and he's out there playing and you're like, he's playing, but he cannot move his arm the way. And it's constantly was with the elbow, the arm, they were looking at it, shoulder. So last year. So, hey, I give him credit for that because that takes a lot of work and it has to change your mindset. When you correct that, whatever it is, adjustment that he's making, it has to become natural.
Well, we saw him last week was not a great day for the offense, Allen included. Him working with the sensors after practice. We mentioned it before of him working with Chase Claypool, but kind of seeing the dynamic of what that is like and using that, biometric data to really I mean, this is where the NFL is at, obviously, but it is cool that it's that scientific of an approach. And he's talking about how it feels different. It feels, it's this much of a movement of your body, but it creates all this opportunity for this and that. And that to me is like, that's how you get better. Everyone in this league is so good. It's those the mechanics and how good you are. That's huge.
And it's feel. And how much of sports is feel. And when you're thinking about, as he talks about, he kind of got lazy and lower with the ball. And so that, some of that stuff, baseball analogy, when the way where you're positioning the ball, even the way that you hold things, he talks about a golf swing, all of those things factor in. And when Jenna made the point of when you're thinking, you're not just reacting and letting your athletic ability. So this is the time to tinker things.
So I'm going to continue with your analogy in baseball, and you see it in spring training. A pitcher maybe coming off an injury goes out in a spring game or goes out in a rehab assignment against some AA team
gets lit up
and gives up 3 bombs, and people are like, and he's like, I ain't worried about them. I'm worried about me. And I think Josh has to mix the two of those because they are trying to get work done. He did say he's going to work on it during this period of time off.
Yes.
Which I think we all like to hear.
Yes.
Right, because he needs that set for when they get to Fisher.
He doesn't market his off-season work.
Well, he has. It's nothing.
I guess.
Well,
I mean, you're right. He did go on Bussin' with the Boys podcast last year and say he doesn't do.
That's not a shot. That I'm just using his words.
Yeah.
But he's at all of the OTAs.
Absolutely.
He's always there for what's needed.
That's not a shot at Josh.
I hear you. I mean, he literally said that. That was last year. I would like to think that he would be a bit more advantageous this year doing off-season work on his own because of him tinkering with what he's doing and all the new faces. But I don't think Josh is the type of guy that puts it out on social media.
If he was not going to be at something, it would be something that is very important to him.
Aaron Rodgers shot. Well done.
Yes.
That's really good. I was going to say, he golfed 110 holes, 117 holes. He came to practice. That was the OTA where we said he's not going to be at OTAs today. He was.
He was there.
And then he went back to the golf course to do raising money for, was it O'Shea?
O'Shea,
Yeah, awesome. So
the Patricia Allen Fund.
The one highlight of the day, Mr. Zach Davidson.
Oh,
and if you don't know who Zach Davidson is, that's fair. But I'll tell you this, the young man can twerk.
Caught a touchdown from Mitchell Trubisky, correct?
Yeah.
And that practice was going like a regular practice. And then he lit up the practice because he did that. It was an extended twerk.
Truly, so he caught the touchdown pass. It was
Over
a nice
the middle,
catch.
yeah.
Nice catch. Absolutely. And then he starts like dancing. And I was like, oh yeah. And then he kept dancing and then he was twerking. And I was like, it's a damn good twerk.
And I would say it's like
that's the open.
Yeah.
No.
But it really was
like
funny.
As a woman, I was impressed
There
that
it
he has
is.
that
There
much
you go.
body
There's the
control.
open.
He really did. And it you could tell. The defense giving him a little bit of a hard time. Offensive guys seemed to like it.
Not Mac Hollins.
Mac Hollins did not like it.
He was getting dapped up going to the sidelines and Mac's going, don't congratulate that.
Yes.
He's like, what was that? No, we're not doing that. But again, for a day where once again the defense dominated, the bright spot was Zach Davidson.
And he was not by the Bills, but he was a previous 5th round pick out of
Central Missouri.
Yes. I was telling Dan, was trying to get him to guess. We had no idea where he went. He even went
Shaq
Central.
Lawson yesterday or last year when we were in the locker room said that we were doppelgangers. And
Really?
Yeah. Zach's also 6'4". So
Yes.
yeah, I guess we kind of look alike.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up now. This is a terrible podcast.
Bad
Yeah,
podcast.
it really is.
While you look that up,
Yes.
the other thing that we saw today was Matt Milano back.
Oh, big.
And that was, again, to get to see him moving around. He participated in individual drills. It's been 8 months since his injury. Just seeing 58 back out there with a helmet on, black visor.
Yeah, it's good luck.
Him and Bernard looking real sharp with the black visors. Just good to see him out there. I thought that was a positive sign, meaning more and more that he's on track for hopefully McDermott said that as long as he's not too sore today from participating in the individual drills, he's expected to be out there again tomorrow.
Boy, if he can stay on the field. Now, he's dealt with injuries through his Bills career, and I know he's got a few years in him now. But, man, I love the Bernard Milano pair. You don't have Poyer and Hyde anymore, and it's different. It's in the middle. But even Bernard said, we think alike. We think the game alike. And I think Milano probably refers to Bernard as the loud guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of Bernard as pretty, not soft-spoken, but kind of a quieter way about him, calm way. Milano may talk to them.
Yeah.
I still am trying to remember what his voice sounds like. I mean, we just hear so little of him.
But I remember when they drafted Bernard and then we heard him and he's like, I modeled my game after Milano. And we were like, well, that's weird because why would you get the same position kind of thing? I mean, some people knew that he could be a middle linebacker, but not everybody.
My God. He just maneuvered into
Hold on, wait.
Yes.
Making sure that he got
He maneuvered right into
the
that.
pat on the back. No, Terrell Bernard is such an interesting person. You talk about Matt Milano, and that is huge for this team. I think that also is just a sign of progress. And I think for so many players, seeing him back, it gives them a little bit of relief because without Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Trey White, to have a familiar face back, you're like, oh, that's a win. That feels like a win.
Playmaker.
Olive oil.
Milkshake.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And two, I think we talked to Terrell Bernard after practice today, and he just talked about they really didn't get a lot of time together, Milano and Bernard being out there and just kind of getting back together and feeling on the same page. But you mentioned their ability to kind of have the same thoughts and have that kind of synergy back. But I will say too, Terrell Bernard, it was interesting because he talked about how he just feels, I mean, last year, it was a total, think about how he was feeling last year.
And-
He didn't have the starting role.
Oh,
and
no
it was
doubt.
like, who's going to replace Tremaine Edmonds? No one knew.
It's why we referenced June. A year ago in June. Heck, a year ago in August.
Yeah.
It was still like, Bernard hasn't done anything. Who's going to be the linebacker? And he ends up being outstanding for the year. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to be in that spot.
Correct.
But here he is, as Jenna's saying, a year later. I'm telling you, I think the two best players on the defense may very well be the two linebackers.
I agree. And you talked about the 4.5 games that they played together. I went back and looked. I don't have my notepad in front of me, but I went back and looked at those 4 games that they played together. Outstanding. Caveat, they were against the Commanders, they were against the Raiders, things like that. But I think they only allowed 10 points per game.
And they were taking the ball away.
They took the ball away a bunch. They had 9 sacks against the Commanders game. Bernard, I think, had 3 or 4 in that game. They were, Mike said, playmakers.
Yep.
At that position.
It'd be big.
I think definitely. And that comfort factor, I feel like too. I don't think you ever get truly, for most players, comfortable in terms of you always have to bring it. This is a tough league. There's a ton of competition, but I just feel like for that linebacking core, knowing the guys that they have, knowing the playmakers and the ability that's there.
Yep.
It definitely
big boost just to get them back, especially before camp.
Yeah.
That everybody can go back at the end of this, Sean talked about what they want to accomplish this week. And I thought it was interesting. And maybe we'll just put the soundbite in here because I thought it was interesting. He was asked by Matty Glab about what would be considered successful over these next 2 days so that he feels good going into the 6-week break. And this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I think let's just start with the health of our football team. It was mentioned that we have some injuries and some of those are going to happen. I think the biggest thing is, can we get ourselves through the break? Can we get ourselves through the next couple of days, number one, and then into the break period, and those guys can spend time with our trainers and our training staff and get to training camp where they're available. I think that's important. Staying healthy over the break for the guys that are healthy right now is also important. And so I think you start there, and then you get into making sure that schematically, this is a time of year for us at least where we try and develop our menu a little bit, try things, throw some things out, add some things. It's really the time of year to try some of that. And then my ask of the coordinators is that when we break or before we break, that they've got a pretty good menu built that they believe in and matches what we know at this point at least to be the strengths of our players. And then we get to training camp and we rep, so that we're efficient and effective with what we're trying to do.
I thought the menu I thought was, again, it's new coaching staffs too.
Yeah.
So what can they have to know what they can put on the menu, what ingredients work? I really liked that analogy and comparison from McDermott.
And we got a chance to talk to Gabe Steveson.
Gable.
Oh, he was Gable. Yeah. Well, nobody calls him Gabe?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not going to call him Gabe.
I dare you to call him Gable. Gabe.
I talked to him 3 times today.
He did. Interesting cat.
He is. So he was coming off the field, and not that this is not anything so crazy. He was coming off the field, and we asked to interview him, and he said, I have one question. So I asked him a question about transitioning to the NFL and playing football, and he gave an okay. And then he got asked 2 more questions, and then he said, okay, and he left. And it was odd just because it felt like we could get more from him to talk. And then it was maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes later, he came back out and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you guys. Yep. And a bunch of more people came over. And I thought he was really good during that time, talking about all the stuff that goes into being this incredible wrestler and now trying to figure out football.
He called it a unicorn chance. So, he's never played football. He was even asked kind of like, hey, were you a football fan growing up? And he's like, kind of but he talks about what it would mean to play 2 sports and to be an Olympian and how he still he says his having an Olympic gold medal still feels fake to him.
Yeah.
Still doesn't process that. But Mike, you were talking about you asked him what's the biggest adjustment.
Yeah,
because some of the things translate. And McDermott said that he's even tried to use some wrestling lingo.
Yeah.
Because Gable thinks like the fact of, well, just see ball, tackle ball. And he goes, you got to, whether it's a pass, whether it's a run, all these things. So some things translate, but he goes, is it a stretch? Is it a sweep? All these things. He goes, terminology that unless you're played football growing up, you may not know. And none of us know the lingo like
those guys
most.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they do. So he had mentioned first time ever putting on cleats. So I said to him, so what is it that's the most, I don't know if I said difficult to adjust to or whatever. You got the cleats, the shoulder pads, and the helmet. Here's Gable.
You mentioned the cleats. You got helmets. You got shoulder pads. What's the one that you're like, oh, really? This is what you got to
The helmet. I didn't know the helmet was that damn heavy. Because we're used to headgear, and sometimes the Olympic style, you don't have no headgear. So I put on a helmet, and you talk, getting in the stands. I'm like, hey, I can't pick my head up. Because you'll get used to it. And now I finally got used to it. So the helmet, man, about 35 pounds the way it is now. But, you've got to protect ourselves.
Yeah, helmet. They are heavy.
They're not 35 pounds.
No, but they're heavy. And you're wearing it trying to, like he says, trying to keep your head up. Nah, he's a big, strong kid.
He's got a
he'll be
massive
fine.
neck.
Yes.
Like, I think that he'll eventually.
Once he gets comfortable as a football player, those physical traits that he has will be there for him. Can they translate to applying them against guys who have played a lot of football in their life and have seen big, strong, fast guys?
Yeah.
We don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Didn't Christian Wade talk about that too? When we talked to him about you've ran with a ball in your hands.
Oh, it's the helmet, he said.
Yeah.
Right? The helmet is weird. Like he even said in some wrestling, they wear the headgear.
Yeah.
And other ones, they don't.
The Olympics sometimes.
But
he was
that
saying
is
they
still
don't.
virtually nothing.
Yeah.
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 So
We were joking. You think he showed up first day in a singlet?
Sean's probably like, let me show you mine.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sean, everybody has seen that picture of McDermott.
It's a good one.
It is.
They talk many I did like that McDermott said he would, and you kind of reference this, of talking to Gable in wrestling terms to better equate it to football. And I think that makes sense. You got to speak his language, and it is a lot to learn.
I respect so much that McDermott hasn't wrestled since high school. Like he didn't wrestle at William and Mary as far as
No, he played football. Yeah.
He's still like so into wrestling. Like not WWE wrestling, like which Gable also did for a short period
of time. Yeah.
But just the fact of like, I guess maybe it's like once you're a wrestler, that never leaves you. Like the discipline that you have to have, the cutting weight, all of that stuff. Like Gable was talking about the fact of, I'll do it. Like once they tell me, yes, like I'm doing it. There's no questions. I'm just doing it. And he's trying to get up to speed. But he says even in just the first week, he feels light years ahead of where he was before.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating to see. But when you are a tremendous athlete, it's like you could take another guy who has played a ton of football. I'll take my chances with the athleticism and teaching him the game, because if you don't have those skills,
correct,
you cannot play in the NFL. But if you have those skills and you can figure out the game better, because it is a certain set of things you need to do on the D line.
Yeah.
You're not catching and running with the ball. Like it's a different set of skills. I'll take my chances.
I'd also imagine it's got to be a pretty humbling experience for Gable to go into something that you are the best in, not just the country, the world.
Right.
And now you're going to struggle with the basics of basics football.
Yeah.
And now, like I said, you're going up against guys that have played football their entire lives, eat, sleep, breathe. That's been the whole thing. And now he's just trying to get into it.
His mom didn't want him to play football because it was too dangerous. Yeah.
Amazing.
She goes, but then you put me in wrestling.
Like the most dangerous one.
Different kind, but it's
yeah. I think the discipline you have to have being a wrestler will show in, yes, he is being humbled right now, but the discipline and the work ethic that you see from most, if not every, to wrestle, you have to have those things.
Yeah.
So
humble and hungry.
Quite literally.
Trust the process.
Cutting weight.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jenna's hungry. So this is probably the end of
I had a cup of soup, a cup of noodles.
Cup of noodles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I love those things.
Are you full?
No. I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A.
There you go.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, we're recording this Tuesday. I think it'll be out either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and I'll be back up for OTAs on Wednesday.
Look at that. Wednesday.
Perfect. All right.
Possibly a special guest joining that recap.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Justin Shorter.
Yeah.
He's made the pod.
All right. For Mike and Dan, I am Jenna. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, as well as share. We'll catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by Connors and Ferris. Woo.